than they did drop that single game, but SKT to me were perhaps the strongest teams, but even some of those other regions, Pulse, it's an interesting Worlds this time out.
Yes, it is, Papa Mithy. Well, we're about to get into Champion Select here. G2 and ROX. Bans are coming through. There's the Aurelion Soul ban, have to ban that one away. Ezreal, Karma, and Olaf will be taken off the table.
So this time, it's Rox Tigers on the red side. Last time out, there had to be a double jungle ban. Nidalee and Elise had to go out against Peanut from the ROX Tigers. Neither of them banned so far in the first 4. So let's see how things are. It's going to be the Cannon ban, of course. They remember Smeb's Cannon from that highlight clip you saw. Let's see how the jungle pool goes, because maybe for ROX you just don't ban either and take a different direction.
And we're waiting on that final ban now coming in from ROX. Pobelter, do you have a feel on what this might be?
It could be Syndra. I think a lot of teams are prioritizing Syndra super heavily in this tournament. So, oh yeah, there it is.
Oh, called it right off the bat.
Why we bring in the experts,
yeah, that's why we do. Final ban, and then that will look towards the first pick now from G2.
Very, very risky to leave up Peanut's Nidalee, but it's going to be on between Trick and Peanut to decide where they want to go. Of course, Trick was the double MVP from Europe. This time on the ROX Tigers, Peanut had a great year, but it was Smeb, so dual MVPs doing battle, and another champion with Cannon ban, probably the strongest laning matchup we've seen against the Rumble. We might see a very early reach for Rumble as a first pick for G2, but they just can't look past that, Nidalee.
No, you can't really just gift that one over to Peanut without taking another priority pick for themselves. So instead, just pick up the Nidalee for G2. And now ROX Tigers, what will their first rotation be? Where do you think they're going to put their focus here?
They don't have to rush for the Elise. That's likely to be the pickup in a very big jungle pickup for Peanut. ROX Tigers, 3 out of 3 games. They've had one game where Ezreal was banned away. They first picked Ezreal in that Nocturne comp against G2, and they first rotationed on the red side the Ezreal against CLG. But now we get to see what changes when you get those days off, when you're not battling towards future games for Worlds. Everything's on the line for ROX today, and let's see if no-face preparation changed things, and it has. It's not Ezreal for the first time, a pivot, and not a champion that Prey's been known for in 2016 by any means. It's the Caitlyn Alistar in the first rotation for ROX.
Very interesting to see this one come out. I was talking to Froskuren earlier in the green room, so he was saying if you were to draft the perfect composition, then Caitlyn and Alistar would be up there in the highest win rate out of these champions so far. So that has been drafted by ROX. We'll see what the response now will be from G2. If you were G2 right now, Pobelter, where would you put your focus?
I would definitely hold on to one of the solo lanes. Usually it's pretty bad to pick a solo lane in this rotation because that will mean both of your solo lanes get counterpicked. So they're probably just going to match the bottom lane pick here and just try and counter that lane.
I mean, with the Nidalee, you can see that they could be ramping up for a poke comp. Sivir will be a bit of a pivot there, but one of the best answers to poke are the likes of the Braum and the Tahm Kench. You're not really worried about the Tahm Kench. Smeb does play at top lane, but not for a long time. They're going to take the Braum, which is one of the best blockers to a poke comp. So they're leaving their options open. There's nothing really showing about the G2 draft in the first 3 picks, rather than the really strong jungle matchup in the Nidalee and a good complete bot lane now. So we've got both bot lanes locked in.
And there's a fast response actually from the ROX Tigers. We've got the Rumble coming out for the top lane and Lee Sin for Peanut. So matching those lanes and leaving mid lane open now for that counter pick.
So much new stuff here from the ROX Tigers. The Lee Sin, of course, was the big pick that came through. We saw lots of jungle bans in week 1, which was common in Korea previously, but not in other regions. Lee Sin jumped up in priority. Remember, we saw Rek'Sai from Peanut, and it wasn't really that impressive. The Nocturne game was a bit of a gimmick. Now with Olaf off the board, Lee Sin early, there's only been a single game of Lee Sin in summer from Peanut, was a victory, but it's not been a big pick for him by any means. We're looking for Peanut to really build up to the hype, build up to the level, and he was top 5 in the overall rankings for players to watch at Worlds. So let's see if he can make it down, because we've seen some great Lee Sin, we've seen some average Lee Sin so far at Worlds.
Yes, we have indeed. G2 waiting on their final rotation. They have locked in the Poppy, so that will be going into the top lane and just waiting a couple more seconds for their mid lane pick, and it will be that Cassiopeia. Now, we are looking at G2 from their perspective and the Fog of War on their stream.
And an instant lock on Kuro's Viktor, 21-4 career, by far his most played champion. It's going to go for the wave clear. I mean, what's your take? This is a very standard mid lane matchup, Pobelter, Cassiopeia versus Viktor. Any nuances about this lane? Because to me, going to be early pushing from the Cassiopeia. Viktor gets a hex score, tries to wave clear, and goes from there.
Yeah, Viktor has a really good win rate against Cassio in competitive play and is 2-0 against Cass in this world so far because the W, the stun zone, and also the ultimate is so good at zoning Cassio in fights. And kind of the problem is that G2 had to blind pick a mid there, right? But you also have to pair it with Nidalee. So you want something with CC, but there aren't any very good like blind pickable mids that have CC besides Syndra. So he had to take the Cassio, which doesn't match well with Syndra. And he's also playing against Caitlyn, which is high range, not very useful. And you're also playing against Lee Sin, who punishes low mobility mid laners like Cassio. So it was really just kind of a lose-lose. So it's kind of unfortunate that not only did he pick Cassio, which doesn't synergize well with his champions on his team, but he also is playing into Kuro's Viktor, which is also really good.
And something we remember with those Cassiopeia picks, because it's that mid to short range damage, as you say, the zoning, and then potentially if the flash is down, Lee Sin comes around level 6, we know where it goes from there. So comfort for Viktor and comfort for Kuro could be good for ROX, who are trying to play themselves in form, which sounds crazy when you're 2-1, but when you're tournament favorites, 2-1, and particularly the way that they've really struggled in the early game, is not good enough for ROX Tigers.
Now, our focus is on, of course, G2's perspective in this game. So what are you thinking about the early game? Because you were just talking about the mid lane matchup, and now we have Nidalee in the jungle, more of an early game focused jungler, and we know about ROX Tigers' early game. So how do you think this is going to go for them?
I think today, honestly, it's about a bit of defensive warding around the mid lane, really trying to stop any snowball happening in top. Very standard things. On the side of G2, they won the early game very handedly last time, so a return to what they were doing, and let's see if Trick, that MVP jungler, can make things happen on the Nidalee. Nidalee 100% picked band, and nothing changes here.
No, it will not. Well, we're about to get into game here. G2 and ROX. And remember to jump on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll be answering any of your questions that you have during this stream, and of course, all day as well.
Loading in here. Let's see if anything changes for ROX after, as we said, some very weak early games. Actually, G2, they're the ones pulling out something creative. They're all on the top side of the map on blue side.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Looks like they're going for some deep vision.
Oh, finding Smeb here as well. He's going to have to flash, yep. Gets the stun over the wall, so lands the spear as well.
We've seen defensive fanning almost completely during the course of this tournament, and on 6:15 and standard lanes, so it's not really something you could have really expected from G2. And Smeb having flashed down on a champion like Rumble that's likely to overextend, has a big wave clear advantage against the Poppy early, could be struggle street for the side of G2, sorry, the side of ROX.
Now that we have the flash down in the top lane, Pobelter, would you expect the jungler now to change up his path and try and go bot lane up to top, or do you think he'll just carry on with the blue start?
Junglers almost always start blue so that their bot lane can get the Krugs on purple side. And I think that Nidalee isn't really a champion that ganks a lot in the early game, so even though Rumble has no flash, it's pretty difficult to exploit that as Nidalee, who just kind of wants to farm and secure an advantage through just taking jungle camps really fast.
Yeah, a lot of the power usually from Nidalee is kind of getting in the face of the enemy jungler and being that battle ward, making the enemy jungler predictable and allowing your lanes to overextend. But this might be one of the rare games, at the level 2, Expect has quite a lot of CC with the wall slam to open up a Nidalee gank. So there is an outside chance with flash down especially that we see some different pathing from Trick. He started blue, Nidalee is blue intensive on the first clear at least, but there is the outside chance that we do see that visit top, a level 3 gank very early into the picture.
Of course, saw that vision as well, the aggressive vision coming in from G2 with that invade. So you just saw it fizzle out there, and they know that Peanut started around the area and will be trending towards the bot side of the map. And Trick is actually moving up here, so that's at level 3. And maybe look to try and abuse Smeb in the top lane.
They saw Rumble place his vision at level 1, so he has a very good idea that the Trinket Ward isn't up yet, so Smeb for now is blind.
Oh, barely misses the spear. Caught it with the pounce as well, so it looks like it'll just be damage in this one. Smeb, however, the flash! Knocks him against the wall, and that's the first blood as well.
I mean, honestly, from Smeb's side, that was just him overextending with no flash. We've seen Rumbles do that before. Marin was famous for it on SK Telecom, but that was about as easy as can be on the side of G2, and what a great confidence builder to start the snowball. The Trinket Ward will be back for Smeb. The flash is about 2 minutes away, but a big advantage for G2. Only big use is the flash from Poppy.
Pobelter, as a solo laner there, do you just have to play back in lane, don't push the first wave, and then knowing that your flash is down and the jungler could level 3 gank?
I think the problem is that you just surrender so much, having to play incredibly safe for the off chance that the jungler is going to try and cheese level gank you like that. So if you die like that, honestly, it's just well, I guess it's kind of unlucky I had to bring my flash level 1, but he still TP'd in and got the entire wave, and now Poppy doesn't have flash, so it should still be a really stable lane, honestly. He's still up, 8 CS right now, and I'm pretty sure Rumble is a favorable matchup versus Poppy, so it's not that bad.
And just following on from what Pobelter's saying, You know, we already mentioned the jungle matchup. If Nidalee's not ganking top, if there's no pressure top because Rumble's playing, you know, paralyzed under his turret, that's free room for Nidalee to take over the red side jungle.
Right.
No ROX started there, but the next camps would spawn. It would be completely surrendered to the side of G2. So you can understand just trying to play as if Flash was up, but G2 had the information, they used it well, and got the gank before the ward could come back for Rumble.
Trick trending towards the bot side now. Did have the Raptor buff, so he's going to see that ward, so of course bot lane knows he's there. And just clears this one away. Still no eyes on Peanut though, so knowing that he was starting in top side, and they haven't seen Lee Sin yet, where would you expect to see the jungler right now, or think he is?
Good question. I mean, when it comes to gankable lanes, we already outlined it, Pobelter mentioned it, mid lane is one of those exploiter lanes, but more at level 6 from the side of Lee Sin. And see Trick just visit mid lane. It's been honestly all about Trick showing up in lanes, and we can tell from these CS fights, not like he's only about a single camp behind his opponent.
Well, Trick's going to jump in there, trying to find the assassinate. He has to line up this spear, but he's going to find Peanut instead. And unfortunately, he takes another tower shot and will drop there.
Well, that was the Lee Sin exactly where Nidalee was hoping. It wasn't necessary from Peanut. They got the spear. Viktor was chunked out, doesn't have the hex core. His wave clear from that far back wouldn't have been reliable, but Trick got greedy, on play made, and then kind of an advantage surrendered to the side of ROX Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the player cams and the ROX Tigers dudes were just laughing. Like, that's such an insane play to make when Lee Sin can be anywhere and can just flash safeguard over to counter gank. They have such a good advantage right here. If you don't press it right here, then you can make Viktor lose the entire wave and just trunk the turret and also force Lee Sin to show, but if you just go for the all-in like this, it can only go badly.
It's not the sort of something you expect on the world stage because it's all about measured advantages, right? It's like, well, we denied a wave and a half, we used his flash. Those are usually big enough advantages, but we have to consider where G2's coming from. 0-3, very disappointing for their region at MSI, trying to parlay that into a big performance and certainly not having that in week 1. Trick, I feel like if they'd gone, 1-2, 2-1, you wouldn't feel pressured to be the big star MVP that Trick always is, but they're going to return to top, but this time Flash is up for Smeb.
Yeah, so that's down once again. We do have a question from Twitter. I was going to hold that thought for a second as Gorilla's jumping in there. He's taking a bunch of damage from the bot lane, but this should fizzle out. So the question is from Faya, who says, with the shift in format to each team playing out all of their games in one day, how much do you expect tilt to be a factor?
Well, I have some first-hand experience with this when I played at Worlds last year, and we lost 2 games in a row to ROX Tigers and Flash Wolves, and then we were just pretty tilted for the last game, and we ended up losing to the wildcard team at that tournament, Pain Gaming. So, I mean, definitely it's something you have to look out for. I would say it's definitely something, yeah.
And just to be clear, who's the wildcard team in this particular group? It's G2, that's 0-3, so I don't really know who you tilt against in this particular group, honestly.
That's true, it's only an advantage now for G2. But after that first gank going well, and now the second one just kind of diving in the middle turret, you think like Trick will now just play completely defensive. He knew Peanut was in his jungle as well because he tagged him with the Q.
I mean, the big issue with a Nidalee playing completely defensive is it doesn't play to the reason you picked the champion. It needs to be aggressive, it needs to be appropriately aggressive. Speaking of that aggression, I'm going to get a stun onto Alistar, so he's going to be helping push the wave, I guess.
He's just going for some really random ganks, I think. I mean, back earlier when he went top and forced Smeb's flash where he didn't have to flash, he didn't have any camps up on that side when his Wraiths and Golems were up. And he's just, he's not getting any CS advantage over Lee Sin, which is the whole reason why you pick Nidalee, according to Rainover at least. You know, it could be wrong.
Give us the Rainover scouting report for Nidalee. So, you got to get ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. Rainover just farms every camp and tries to gank as little as possible. And that's kind of the opposite of what's happening in this game. And he went for another random gank bot too, which didn't pan out to anything. So he's just slowly falling behind and not really playing to the strengths of his champion. And if these ganks were successful, then that would be fine if ROX is overextending, but they're not even having to use flash in a lot of these games.
And we can talk about the vision toggle. Obviously, we're only playing from the perspective of G2 if you're joining in late. The big story is when you have the Nidalee, because she has such great dueling and skirmishing and early game damage, she can pounce into the enemy jungle and place very advanced wards. She can pounce over the, I guess, Rift Herald wall, Baron wall, and get wards into the enemy red side, into the blue side. But once you give up that death, once you kind of go for these low percentage ganks, they really do not have any information on Lee Sin's movements this whole game. They were surprised when Lee Sin was there for the counter gank. It felt like if they were playing more ordered, they would have first prepped the vision around Raptors, then gone for the play in mid lane. But skipping steps on the world stage, you get punished.
Right now, G2 are still kind of even with ROX. I mean, the game is not snowballing out of control just yet, but it does feel like Peanut has control over the jungle.
Wow, look at this.
Yeah, actually going right around, and Kuro did not even see that coming, did not have the vision. And PerkZ will just clean that one up. Oh, last tower shot. That hurts.
He ended up getting stunned by the Viktor W. Took those extra tower shots and went down. So it's a 1-for-1 with G2 using so many resources. So ROX actually end up big winners from that trade because they just didn't have to send all their members to the mid lane.
It's actually not that bad because Rumble ended up using TP there, and it feels like they're definitely going to have some mid pressure now because PerkZ made Kuro miss a wave there. So if they play well with this mid pressure and the TP advantage, I think they can set up a play bot and go for Dragon.
Yeah, we're going to see the replay. It was nice from Expect, who's been on the back foot all season. You know, he's not known for his big playmaking, but Poppy's been a big pick this Worlds. They had so many members there. It seemed like the kill was inevitable, but Expect ended up getting tied up and taken down.
Yeah, and you could actually see as well on the toggle there, the vision from ROX, and pretty much all of it was centered around the bottom side. There was nothing in the top side, so Kuro was not covered from that angle. And ROX, with this slight jungle pressure advantage, do you think they'll start swapping it up? Is it based on like the current game time, what objectives they're looking for?
For now, it's still very much laning phase. And G2 are the ones making plays. They're doing it again here. Oh, the flash from Gorilla is not going to go down, though. Again, we're left to wonder, where's Lee Sin at? I just don't know. They still have not had that advanced vision. They have, you know, nice pink in the brush to cover Expect and top. One on the left side that is spotted out by ROX, but otherwise, they will see Kuro roaming down, but still no information on Lee Sin.
Yeah, last time I did one of these, it was Splice as well against MXG's Lee Sin, and he was literally just coming out of anywhere, like out of your own jungle, out of your bush that you thought you had warded. It's not quite there yet for Peanut, but he is just appearing at random places, apparently for G2, not having that vision down. If you're in this position as G2, do you actually want offensive wards, just like a random one, just to try and spot Lee Sin? Because right now, I haven't seen G2 put down a single ward in the enemy jungle.
Yeah, it feels kind of weird. I feel like Lee Sin should maybe have a bit more of an advantage considering how much Nidalee's been showing around the map and pressuring everywhere. But that could be just due to Nidalee's more advantageous clear speed. So even though Nidalee isn't farming as much, he's able to do it so fast that he's able to keep up a little bit.
So our first spot of Lee Sin, it was killing the Scuttle Crab. There's Gorilla as well.
Unfortunately, it was an Alistar with them. And Smeb lands a good multi-man ult, but he will be punted out there by Expect.
It's the first time we're seeing Gorilla leave lane. Alistar was a massive pick for him in spring. He actually fell behind on Alistar play in summer. It was much more the likes of Wolf from SK Telecom and Wraith from Samsung, but it is a really good pick. He's very good at unlocking around the map, and they do have good defensive vision around top, so that gank on Poppy is difficult, but around the mid lane, that's where you have to really worry. We mentioned that Cassio needs to overextend for her trades, and they need to keep Alistar and Lee Sin accountable, because to me that's the big heat spot when it comes to future Lee Sin and Alistar ganks is around the mid lane.
And when you're looking for those opportunities to unlock, well, waiting for a second, does connect the Q onto PerkZ, but doesn't choose to go in. He will just burn his ultimate there. Is it when you're looking to go back to base and then seeing the lanes, is analyzing them, seeing if there's anything to set up? Is it a call from the jungler?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, at this point, the reason why we didn't see Peanut go in there is that they didn't have any aggressive vision, plus they didn't see Braum on the map. So because the pinks have stuck around the defensive side for the Cassiopeia on the red, it just wasn't a percentage play to go for an insect play on the Cassio, even though he juked the Cassio ultimate. But we already saw Trick not make a percentage play, and then actually Peanut, one of the more aggressive junglers, make the percentage play. So despite kind of the relatively hairy position, or surprisingly uneasy position ROX find themselves in, still been Trick very much the aggressor, and Peanut a little bit more on the defensive side.
The Trick here going for this dragon completely alone. He does have it pink warded. When can you actually just go for this? Well, when you know Lee Sin's on the other side of the map, I guess. PerkZ gonna see him.
Yeah, actually, I think their bot lane ended up basing, so he just went for it. It's kind of yellow. I see the junglers go for it a lot, and sometimes you get interrupted. But if all your camps are down already and there's nothing for you to farm, you might as well just go for it.
Yeah, I like what Pobelter's saying. The opportunity cost when your camps are down is very low, and because Nidalee and Rek'Sai, kind of the picks you see do this, they can always just hop back over the wall when you're on blue side. So it's often the blue side team that's trying that if they don't actually have bot lane pressure or bot lane coming back to help out with that dragon.
Right. And seeing that Peanut was trying to invade on the top side, but nothing really to go for. We haven't really seen a big priority on Herald at all this tournament, so if you do see the enemy jungler on bot side, would that be an objective you would go for, Pobelter?
It depends. With these kinds of champions, Poppy versus Rumble, I think Rift Herald is a bit less valuable than if you had something like Jace, but the problem with doing Rift Herald is that it takes longer than Dragon because the damage you deal to it is gated by how often you can proc the hit from behind the eyeball.
Yeah.
So it just takes so long, and it takes so much tempo away from your team because you end up taking so much damage for it too. So unless you have a really good position, it's pretty difficult to get Rift Herald.
And the tempo situations have changed a lot post 615 or post playoffs when standard lanes have been enacted. So we saw a lot more Rift Heralds, especially at the start of the season around the lane swap meta. But even with that 20-minute buff timing, we see a couple. If the game is kind of devolved by 19 minutes, you take it at 19-20 and have it till 39 minutes. If there's no big loss, losing a big outer turret in the bot lane, for example. But early in the game, it feels like Rift Herald has been completely ignored, barring maybe 2 or 3 kills in some games across Worlds.
Seems like a lot of people are congregating around the bottom side right now. Wards in ROX's jungle have alerted G2 that Peanut is there, so they do have eyes on him for once.
That's why you see Trick looking for a counter gank. They know Lee Sin's bot side.
I'm going to wait around here for a second, so they're a little blind because they knew Peanut was here, but they didn't see if he went left or right. There he is, in the bottom lane. That's the Q, but maybe a good defensive ult there, so doesn't choose to go in. And PerkZ is there, walks right into the bush, flash from Trick as well, and they'll just try and delete Peanut out, but he's going to survive with the safeguard.
Hex Shrinker, that's a tilter.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. If you look here, Smeb actually completed his teleport. Expect stopped it at the last, so Expect's going to get turret damage in. First brick still available, so we'll see if ROX try to brute force this out of bot lane turret.
Well, Gorilla with the engage there under tower. Peanut's still here, and just has the cheeky Q there to finish off the kill. So that's the brute force you were talking about, Maybe.
There's brute force taking turrets and there's brute force diving turrets. The first dive play from ROX. They don't have a minion wave just yet. The turret will go down soon. We're going to finally see top lane turret. Feels like just with the numbers advantage, it's probably going to be ROX, but it's a big swing. That first brick gold, the first turret going down. The bounty is really high, even if you can't give it all to one member of the team.
Oh, actually went to mid
Wow.
lane.
That was just completely ignored the whole time.
What the hell?
Yep.
Okay, wow, that's really weird. I didn't expect that to happen because Cassie's been up like 20 CS for most of this game and always shoving in Viktor, so I wonder where that damage came from.
Well, I mean, we saw, obviously, Cassio camping that brush to get the kill on Lee Sin. It seems like, meanwhile, Viktor auto-attacking down his turret.
Yeah, classic. The the Viktor hard push mid lane. Well, Trick looking for an opportunity just to clear out vision here, along with Mithy as well, starting to group up with the support now that bot lane tower has gone down. And taking a lot of vision, actually, now putting more aggressive vision down, despite them actually falling behind in mid and bottom. Is this just a result of the back timings, knowing that Kuro was going back?
It seems like it. We don't have any information, obviously, but it seems pretty clear that Viktor went back. We're going to see a replay on this bot lane play, and this is very much Gorilla. Returning to Alistar was known for the double pulverize into the layering of the equalizer. Just beautiful stuff, and Peanut's kind of there for moral support at the end of the day.
Gave him the Q, got the kill steal, all good in Peanut's life.
Question for you, Pobelter. So I've seen a lot of this Viktor versus Cassio over in Korea, and it feels like if the Viktor player ever gets the turret down first, how do you get back into the matchup as Cassio, given that you just, you see your wave, it gets instant cleared by an E, and then the Viktor's kind of left to roam the map? Like, do you call in the rest of your team to push the turret to kind of counter the vision that's down? Do you just kind of accept the fact that Viktor could be anywhere on the map? Like, what do you do when there's such a pressure problem? Maybe you'll have to answer that in a second.
Because Mithy, he's just dead.
Actually, there's nothing you can do because Cassio takes so much longer to clear the wave than Viktor. So if you get in that situation, you are just kind of screwed, unfortunately.
And not even worth like calling your duo lane, looking for a lane swap, looking for some help, because it just feels like if Viktor's unlocked on the map, then it's pretty bad times for everyone else.
Yeah, it's not the greatest position to be in. Yeah, it's not worth it because if you call members of your team over to try and push the turret, Viktor can just E and walk away.
It's fair.
Even if you commit like 5 people there, he can still use his ulti to clear the wave, so it's really not worth it. All you have to do is just accept the fact that you messed up and then
So does that mean that this
I feel
matchup
it.
is tilted to Viktor then? Like, where do you, like, if you had to rate it, you know, like, in terms of who's the favorite or who's the more reliable choice?
I think the win timing for Cassio, it exists, and it's from like levels 1 to 6, and you can still pressure for more than that. But definitely it's from 1 to 6. I mean, we saw earlier when Trick went for like that flash gank and then he died for it. Kuro was super low, and PerkZ had a pretty big advantage. So that's definitely the timing where you can pressure, walk into the enemy jungle, and then make like a 3-man dive top play or something. But they weren't able to do that, and then eventually it just got to the point where Viktor still can't pressure Cassio if Cassio rushes Abyssal, because she'll be too tanky and she'll sustain from her E. But he can just chill and wave clear and then play for team fights, so that's kind of what happened.
And G2 would just take another dragon as well. ROX are typically just like picking up kills and picking up objectives, but not really going for the dragon at all. Is this just indicative of their style here, Mithy?
I mean, it's kind of surprising because you look at the map, obviously they took 2 bot lane turrets, they have the mid lane turret down. The objective that actually makes the least sense for G2 to start is actually going to be that Drake, just because they don't have the minions naturally pathing and giving vision. But I think that was once again a backtimers thing where objectives were taken down, ROX had just kind of ceded complete control on the map, and against the flow and even against the turrets that are up, they basically steal away a Drake.
Right now, G2 are, I mean, definitely on the back foot. They've lost a lot of towers. They're pretty down against ROX. Where do they want to be trying to focus their vision? Because they tried to do it top side, and then ROX were just bottom side.
It just needs to be defensive. At this point, you kind of have to seed the bot lane. The minions are now pushed far enough that they have good control over the top side. Everyone needs to kind of stay towards the left side of the lane because it's very risky to face check the brush that Mithy just did. Okay, he's Braum. He can throw up the shield. He's very unlikely to die instantly, given that he's flash and exhaust up. But they have to play to where their vision is. They're on the defensive. They're definitely up against it. They've taken a couple of Drakes, but otherwise, anywhere around Baron, just stopping Baron from being taken away and just keeping blue buff as something for Cassio to take strikes me as the big focus here for G2.
That's what they're trying to do, taking out the crab. Just roaming around as a big squad at the moment, but they're pretty blind to the location of everyone from ROX. Only now has Prey just appeared on the map in the mid lane. Looking at that bottom wave as well. So from G2's perspective, they just have to wait for a mistake now from ROX. Even Peanuts in there just taking away Raptors.
It's a good question. They have Poppy, who's very good at making things happen, but the item timings, we actually see Trick going for a first big item Rod of Ages. What does Reignover say about kind of Rod of Ages versus Rylai's Pobelter? Because those have kind of been the 2 big Nidalee early items. Is there any preference that you know of between the 2? Because to me, going for Rod of Ages when you've lost 2 bottom lane turrets and the game may be over by the time it stacks seems pretty damn risky.
I think usually he tends to go Rylai's because the slow is really nice, of course. I think Rod of Ages gives like slightly better stats, but the Rylai slow is really valuable. I mean, every mid laner is building it right now. So, yeah, I think that's what Reignover would say.
Oh, flash pull didn't quite connect there. Just trying to get poked down, really.
It's pretty oppressive, honestly, when they set up around a turret, Caitlyn's range, Viktor's wave clear, and then we already saw 1 turret dive. They're going to be pretty happy that they got Gorilla's flash down, because otherwise you could see a recreation of that bot lane out of turret dive on the mid lane right now.
It's been a kind of odd game. Mithy is going to try and finally engage. Lands the ultimate onto a couple of people and the flank from Expect. This could be good with Poppy coming in from behind onto Prey. Just get the knock-up as well, keep him in place, but unfortunately, Rumble's a bit too big.
Yeah, they got zoned so hard by the Viktor W, they couldn't chase into it.
I mean, the moment G2 walk into that particular passage, we're talking about Equalizer burning on 5 members, we're talking about Viktor's line and AoE damage burning on lots. So even though they had the nice teleport from the Poppy, they just didn't have the gold or the early snowball that you would have expected from the Nidalee pick to counter it. And they're just not answering this ROX Tigers push. They had full vision of 1 turret going down, and not even Sivir is going to be able to stop this getting super chunked out.
I was going to say, what was G2 thinking there when they sent Trick bot lane? Everyone just kind of scattered, they got vision, they kind of acted as if ROX were just going to back away.
Good question, Pulse. Good question.
Because even in this circumstance, they had vision, as you mentioned, Mithy. Like, they saw them go top lane, and it's like, just didn't make a lot of sense. And Mithy's going to face check another brush, but this time ROX is there.
Oh, Peanut went for the ward jump to get the Q, and he was probably going to need a sick flash kickoff, but the Q expired.
Trick has collapsed. Coming from one side, due to considering a fight. We know that Equalizer's not up right now, but ROX are kind of kiting till their cooldowns come up.
The knock-up. Oh, the
boy.
implosion. Well, someone's going to die. I think it's going to be expect on this one. Sacrificial.
Why not?
popping. Oh, no. The
Equalizer's almost
MVP Rift Herald. Rift Scuttle there.
We don't normally see taxis on Rift Herald. That's normally Alistar headbutts into flash balls.
Oh, no. Zven took the path along the wall. Had to burn his flash there as well. Yeah, Rift Scuttle is the real homie there. Did save his life, so that's nice. But G2 are making some weird decisions this game. However, I have a question from Twitter talking about ROX. Do you think ROX is playing different / less aggressive than usual, possibly due to their loss? That one from Crazy Flips.
It's really interesting. I mean, the stats for ROX in the early game in LCK aren't necessarily outstanding. A lot of the Battle Ward stuff, you know, the buffless game when Nidalee got all the buffs against Speno in spring, was again a spring season game. He doesn't get Nidalee ever almost in LCK, so it's been a lot more defensive play in general from ROX, but at this tournament, especially contrasting it to Summer, I think it has been, mostly we haven't seen the two-man invades. It hasn't been so much of, say, Smeb Peanut overtaking the enemy jungle. They tried it once against Albus Nox, and it's what lost them the early game there, so they've kind of reverted to very defensive Nocturne, wave clear till 6, and this was basically a Lee Sin wave clear to 6 game.
Yeah, just try and temper some of that aggression. Because we saw, of course, like Revolta on a champion like Lee Sin, and he just went off. He just like was ganking everybody, was super aggressive, but Peanut's done a lot of counter ganking, just kind of tracking Nidalee, not really getting in that jungle.
I mean, the big story to me is that Elise available, I believe he's 22-2 on the year, some crazy win rate on Elise, ignored. He went for Lee Sin over it again, one of these farm to 6 junglers. Now we're living in a world where you could even pick something like Skarner, I guess, which has been a pick because he's finally given up on like skirmish level 3-4 power. He's been much more about the farming style, which isn't the Peanut I know. I don't really know how it sets up ROX going forward in the tournament.
Right now, G2 are not doing a whole lot. Clearing vision, just doing like the standard thing of just warding around the area, but there's not a lot they can do.
What are the comms like in situations like this, Pobelter? Because obviously Immortals did a whole lot of winning, but in the few games where, you know, things were a little bit more difficult, they don't have a lot of vision, they've lost the last couple of skirmishes. What sort of comms, like what are the kind of the calls in a situation like this?
You just kind of call how the waves are like. You know, they're probably saying dragon, all right, we're getting pushed in. We're not going to have any vision. We probably can't contest that. Let's try and get something topside. So here they've grouped up in the top side and they're looking for a catch here. Not going to happen. They don't really have any great engage.
Yeah, they got a pink, some wards around the Baron. They have the minions naturally giving them vision around Baron. So pretty much the only safe places to be towards that pink ward on the top side, you know, stopping any flanks from coming through and pathing towards Baron. So on the one hand, you're not going to be giving up Baron. On the other hand, even with Cassiopeia Sivir, actually have a pretty decent Baron speed. They're not really in a spot to actually start the Baron. So it's more about loss minimization than actually hoping to find an advantage.
So will G2's play now just be keep the Baron area kind of warded so they know what's going on and just try and counter a ROX play? Like, it feels like the ball is now in ROX's court.
Yeah, they've kept pretty good vision around the Baron for this entire time, and ROX is actually playing really slowly too. They're not trying to do Baron at all. They're just sieging mid turret, slowly chipping away at it, and they took the Mountain Dragon. But I think now that their carries have started to get more items, they're starting to think more about this Baron, since they can do it more quickly now. So I think they'll probably start to push in mid-top and try and take full Baron control. And then G2 is pretty much going to have to face check, which is rough because ROX's engage is so good with Alistar, Lee Sin, Rumble.
Yeah, if they can ever get those aggressive wards around, you know, get that, clear out the pink that we see on G2's blue. As you say, anyone that gets access to the backline, whether it's Alistar, whether it's Lee Sin, can really set up both a pick and a team fight engaged. They have plenty of follow-up from Rox Tigers on. So the moment they start making these Baron plays, the moment that, say, Lee Sin and Alistar feel tanky enough to actually start the Baron, that's where G2 is going to start to be forced. As you know, you look on the map, they still have those 2 pink wards, but suddenly Baron looks a whole lot more precarious from the side of G2.
What is the most optimal way of like pushing up and getting vision? Because you see a lot in solo queue, like just the support will go in and just like randomly die. You want to go in like a
solo
bully system.
queue. We've seen plenty of that also Worlds.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Oh, PerkZ as the old insect. Gets caught by the Q, turns around with the defensive ultimate, but unfortunately Kuro's there. Rest in peace. Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah, Prey with the alley-oop, with the ultimate, and that was actually really nice from Peanut. First insect we've seen from him. So far, mechanics on point. Oh, Gorilla.
Oh, looking for the flank as well. Smeb's going to follow after, and Mithy may well die or just get chunked back to base, but G2, they were trying to play the defensive game, trying to find a way to catch ROX out, but unfortunately, PerkZ got caught in the mid lane.
And we should talk about how that happened, because obviously we kept mentioning it. G2, they're opting towards the Baron. They're defensively moving towards the top side. They were never entering their red side jungle. Early in the game, they didn't have red side control. Late in the game, they didn't have it. That was literally, and we don't have the toggle to know for sure, but that was very basically Alistar standing in a pink ward, waiting for his chance to go in after they got one kill. They're coming towards the Baron. For the steal, but
smited away by Peanut. Yeah, did land a good 2-man ultimate there, and they may get a couple kills because of it. Prey's now completely called out on G2 side of the map, so do at least get those 2 kills from it.
Yeah, but G2, because they've been playing for Baron vision, they were really susceptible from being flanked from where Alistar was. It's something that Gorilla's so good at doing normally. They end up giving up the Baron anyway, so the vision they were protecting doesn't count for so much. It's nice to pick up 2 exit kills, but about the smallest of victories you could ask for. ROX are just trying to poke around. They're not actually looking for kills here. They're just dissuading anyone from taking that outer mid lane turret.
They managed to do it with 3 people as well. G2 pushing up with the 5 members, but no minion wave there, unfortunately. And there's a wave bot lane that someone will probably want to be taking. Now Peanut's being more aggressive, actually. And buys the smite. Immediately back into pocket wall. Well, that feels pretty bad.
That's a confidence play
Yeah.
from Peanut for sure. It's the only play you can make when you win the early game and take the Baron. Throwing a question to Pobelter though, is, well, maybe after this replay, we're going to see basically mopping up some kills. ROX wanted the Baron, they got the Baron, but...
Oh, he flashed so he didn't get knocked out by Poppy ult. That's pretty nice.
Peanut's mechanics around Baron. We saw a Baron steal from the Nocturne, and yeah, nice catch there, Pobelter. Guaranteeing that smite. The exit kills were academic, but the small question I want to ask you is that it felt like North America, a lot of the time, whether it was last year when you were on CLG or this year, shied away from the Viktor pick, and even coming into this tournament, Viktor's never really talked about in the same breadth as the top mid laners. Where does Viktor sit? Because it seems like you're one of those guys that does like to play the Viktor from time to time, whereas outside of Korea and outside of kind of the Viktor specialists like Kuro and Crown at this tournament, a lot of people just kind of ignore Viktor.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Viktor seems like a kind of champion where some mid laners just really like to play like me, and other mid laners just, you know, they'll play it a little bit, but it's not really what they're known for. Like Faker and Bjergsen both. They can play Viktor, but they don't really like to play it if they can play
So
something
why do
else.
you like it then? Why is it a big pick for you? Is it the wave clear?
Yeah, it just seems like a very easy champion to execute, very comfortable, very strong in lane, just like an all-rounder, very good. So that's why I like to pick it, honestly.
Any champion that can buy one item and always like counter push from range seems pretty good to me, and that's why I'm surprised that it's always kind of like a niche pick when to me it seems like it should always be kind of in that conversation.
Oh, Peanut. Finally in the engage there. Equalize as well, splitting up the team. And this might just be curtains on the game, actually, for G2. They're going to lose. Ooh, Trick just barely survived, but they already lost 1. So at the very least, they're going to lose 2 inhibs. But with these 2 minion waves coming in, ROX are looking for a little bit more. And this was a G2 Fog of War stream, but from their perspective, they can see all of them. So at least they have that going.
Wards, right?
Yeah, they have that going for them, which is nice.
I mean, it was actually mentioned on Alistar's G2, or when G2, I guess you could say at this point, lose this game, they are actually mathematically eliminated from consideration from getting out of groups.
Which is the worst thing. You had to win, I think, every single game today, Papa's Mithy.
My arms around you, boss.
Thank you very much, friend.
Your G2 heroes.
They were the European hope. Currently looking not a whole lot of hope in this game.
They lasted a week.
They did. They did manage
You know what
to
you
get
can
through
say
week 1.
though, Pulse?
What's that?
There's more time for vacation now.
Man, I'm getting memed as well. This is actually the worst. Well, I'm going to interrupt this conversation with a question from Twitter. KR Demo says, why are teams not banning Alistar with his 8 out of 9 win rate and dominating performances? Pat Smith, you talking about Alistar before?
It hasn't been a big pick for Gorilla in summer. Everyone remembers it in spring. It's kind of one of those situations where against ROX, on blue side, you're a bit more flexible. Remember, when G2 was on red, had to ban Nidalee, had to ban Elise. They actually looked past Elise, which might actually inform future bans against Rox Tigers, but it comes down to the 3 bans. I agree, power picks in the tournament and Gorilla's history tells you that Alistar could be a big pick. But ROX have been so weird in their draft phase. They first picked an Ezreal and then went Soraka Nocturne. So they've been so left of center that you can kind of understand G2 trying to play the percentages and be like, well, they're not really playing this, so let's try and force them or herd them into a specific area. That's why they banned the Kennen, for example. But when you're a team as good as ROX, when you have as many playmakers, someone's going to get a comfort pick, and just this time it was Gorilla.
Something's going to get through. Pobelter, if you were currently playing in this tournament, would that be your strategy following what G2 did, or would you just try and take away some of those power picks?
Would I ban Alistar if I had to play against Rox Tigers?
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, I have no idea. I haven't done any preparation against them because I haven't had to, but the thing is, you always never know what the teams are thinking, like what they have to ban.
Seeing kind of the desperation engage here, but pretty damn big gold lead. It's only 7,000, I guess less than 10,000, but first kill's in, and this might be curtains for G2.
As soon as the first kill went in.
These team fights are just impossible because Cassio and Sivir are just getting... They're either tanking Viktor ulti, they're standing in Viktor W, or they're standing in Rumble ulti for the entire team fight, and then whoever's in the front line, which is Braum and Nidalee, which is not great, are just dying.
The Nidalee front line is usually a bad time.
Yeah. There was a question I was going to ask from Twitter, but I can answer it myself. Who was the late game advantage? I'm going to say ROX, as they are completely murdering G2 right now in their base.
I mean, Cassiopeia is snowballing when she doesn't have to respect zones of control like Viktor's E and W, like Viktor's ult, like Viktor in general, I guess, in team fights, but even Alistar is very powerful in the late game. But in a game like this, Pobelter hit the nail on the head. It's so hard for Cassio to actually do damage in the late game, and there was none of that snowball to talk about.
And that's it. ROX take the win over G2. And it was funny because this stream was meant to be Fog of War, but G2 very rarely had vision of Peanut. Peanut didn't do a lot of aggressive jungle plays. And then once G2 had vision of them, they were in their base finishing the game. So it didn't go so hard. I mean,
what's your takeaway here about it? Because the main takeaway for me was the use of Nidalee. You reflected on it as well. The Nidalee wasn't getting in the face of Peanut. In fact, Peanut was an unknown on the map most of the time. And to be fair, most of the time it seemed like he was farming. We didn't have that complete information. But the wards weren't going down at camps like I expect with the Nidalee with all her mobility. And at the end, it felt like Lee Sin got a free level 6, level 7, level 8. ROX made a couple of good moves, and then the game was kind of over.
Yeah, part of it was that, and he didn't get that big of an advantage. But honestly, he was still doing fine. He got 2 dragons for his team, which is really good. And the team comps were kind of an issue as well, but honestly I think the main point was the bot turret dive where 2 people died and then they lose bot turret and then their bot lane rotates mid and then, I think Kuro ended up getting the turret alone. That's like enough to seal the game, honestly.
And it felt like one of those games that ROX has so often where they're kind of behind in the early game, then they steady, but when they get that first kill, when they get that first dive, when their tails are up, the game ended pretty damn fast after that turret dive, at least in terms of a realistic chance for G2 to come back.
Yeah, I have a similar question talking about the junglers there as well. We saw Peanut actually get a couple kills early. He was like 4-0 for most of that game, but he wasn't like aggressive at all, but we still saw him do well. When you have an advantage in a game like that, do you just not need to be aggressive? And like, it seems like a champion like Lee Sin is one of those champions you have to go ham like all the time.
Well, they already got so much taking the mid and bot turret. I think maybe his mindset could be, I'm just going to chill. They're still going to feel so much pressure, even if I'm not trying to make so many plays everywhere. Yeah. A lot of Lee Sin players get baited and then kind of try and make all the big plays and then throw the game. But he definitely didn't do that. And especially against Poppy and Cassio, who can make it so you can't move around, I think he played really well.
And it's an evolution for Peanut. He was never known as a jungler to kind of take that back seat. He was always the one. He was the
Getting
one
into the jungle,
setting the temperature of the game, right? He's like, I'm going to be in your face. You deal with it. He hasn't been the one to kind of hang back, be the counter jungling or counter ganking jungler. Right. That's an ambition, for example. That's a score from KT Rolster. That really hasn't been Peanut's game, so it's kind of interesting to see him move away from his regular playstyle, still be where he needed to be. He wasn't exposed in any way here. He made his little plays. They looked good in the end of the day. He was there most crucially when he needed to be, on that mid lane turret dive. There was no 1-0 for G2 when they used 3 members, and at the end of the day, it was clean stuff from Peanut.
Pretty much, and that's going to do it from us here at least. So up next, Pobelter will be staying with us and lending us a hand and his mid lane expertise as we take a close look at the matchup between Kira and Huhi. For now though, we'll send you back to the mainstream where Dash and the rest of the analyst desk are breaking down this game.